Oh yeah, time for a couple of tasty stories. By the way, I'm Vince. These tasty stories coming from ProRevenge, r/ProRevenge. This is the RR show, and it's time to have a little bit of fun right now. Posted, of course, under r/ProRevenge. Our first story is written by Fluffy Supermarket 6. Fired from my job, but received a year's worth of pay and got my boss fired. This happened in the early 2010s, before the advancement of technology in video editing and content creation. I was hired as a content creator for a university that wanted to leverage YouTube to kickstart their branding campaign. The pay was low, roughly $2,200, and in those days, there were not many video content creators around, and the process usually took a long time from start to finish. I was hired, and on my second day, my manager presented my key performance indicator of 85 3 to 10 minute videos in 52 weeks, which was impossible for a one-man team in those days. This meant I had to do the scripting, producing, content, talent, shooting videos, composing music. They were too cheap to pay for royalty-free music subscription and editing, all of which I had to use my own equipment and software because their camera and computers were so old. They simply couldn't handle the strain of even doing things in 720p, much less 1080p. I tried to let my manager know, but she smiled encouragingly, telling me to give it a try, assuring me that if the videos were good, the quantity would not be what she was focused on. Hearing this, I agreed to give it a try. My manager treated me well in the first month. However, one day when she found out I was a smoker, her attitude changed overnight. A colleague had actually done a facepalm when I told her about it, and she let me know that the manager hated smokers and often advocated to get them fired. She started nitpicking me on everything, from smelling like cigarette smoke after my breaks, coming in 5 to 10 minutes late despite working more than 4 hours overtime daily, not being contactable during break times. The list goes on, but I soldiered on because I just wanted to do the work and to do it well. 5 months in, I was called into the director's office where I saw my manager putting on her best displeased but gleeful face. I felt my stomach drop. The director told me that she was disappointed because she heard that I was falling behind on my work and it was already halfway through the year and I had only completed 30 of my 85 videos. I tried to explain that I'd been working my butt off on these videos. I literally worked 6 days out of the week, over 60 hours, just to do what needed to be done, and that being a one-man army made things impossible. And also the fact that the videos I had put up grossed the highest ever views on their YouTube page. I also recounted how my manager said that she was looking for quality over quantity. The director dismissed this and stated that my key performance indicator was simply 85 videos in a year, and since it was almost half a year in with my numbers at less than half, she felt it prudent to cut the cord early. I asked how they would even meet the KPI if they were to fire me now. My manager snorted, saying, "Well, we'll find a professional production house to finish your work." The director had given her an odd look, but nodded in support nonetheless, telling me, "You don't need to worry, manager will get the job done." That's when a light bulb went off in my head. Seeing as I was the content professional in the office, one of my jobs was to keep a database of production houses to use in the event we needed to do a shoot that required more resources. And I was sure that they'd be using the production houses in my database, as my manager had no contacts in the production industry. So I changed the contact numbers and messed up all the emails of the entries except one. The one I had a friend working as a junior director, not an assistant director, but a director assigned to smaller video projects. I gave him a call and told him of my plan, and sure enough, within 2 days, they were called to come in to pitch. I told him that I had a plan that was a win-win for us. It would instantly help him and put him on the fast track to a director position by bringing in that much business to his production house. And it would also benefit me financially. I would teach him exactly how to pitch to win over the boss and the director, and in turn, his company would pay me a standard finder's fee of 15%. He agreed instantly and immediately put me on the line with his general manager, who, upon realizing this was to be 6 months of work for a high 6-digit payout, instantly agreed and drew up a contract. As it turns out, after I gave them the metaphorical step-by-step playbook, this new production house was the perfect fit. Somehow, after understanding the needs of the university as well as the sort of themes the university wanted to feature, the director and my former boss were amazed that my friend's production house was so familiar with their content, and they signed them up on the spot. Now, even back then, using a production house was not cheap. Each video they produced could cost double to triple my monthly salary, given that they had specialized video people for each function. Producer, director, director of photography, gaffer, sound person, video editor, assistant director, production assistants, etc. But this meant that they could complete a video every 2 to 3 days. So yes, they produced 50 videos in a span of 4 months, over 100 months of my salary, and I sat back and collected the healthy 15%, which was about 15 months of my salary. This allowed me to put money aside for a holiday and the rest to further my studies with a respected film school overseas. I thought my plan ended here, and I had gotten back at my former bosses, but to my surprise, I received a call from my colleague while I was holidaying in Bali one day. This was the same colleague who had facepalmed when I told her that my manager found out that I was a smoker. She told me that my former manager had been fired and my director given a massive blasting by the chancellor of the university. The content creation project which I was hired for was only given a budget equating to about 1.5 years of my salary, and they had exceeded that budget by over 10 times. My former manager was so desperate to ensure that her content creation project could be completed that she had thrown caution to the wind, paying anything to get the job done so that she could show my director that she had completed the project and had approved the massive spend without getting consent from the director. So that's how I got my friend a super fast promotion to full director at his production house, and 1 year of pay after getting unfairly fired from my job. Our second and final story also comes from r/ProRevenge, posted by user Compile Commit. Story title: Phone calls for the previous owner who turned out to be my manager. Mobile phones become common in my country around 2004, just as I finished high school. My parents bought me my first phone, a secondhand Nokia. It was bulky and basic, but I promised myself that someday I'd buy a new phone with my own money. When college started, I had a 2-hour daily commute. In high school, I had excelled academically and won several district-level awards. These awards were being distributed during my first year of college. One nationalized bank award finally gave me enough money for a new phone. I bought a Sony Ericsson K3000i and a premium SIM card, not realizing it had been abandoned by its previous owner. By the third day, I started receiving calls for a guy named Bitsa from various financial institutions. It turned out the number previously belonged to him, and for 20 years I've been getting these calls. Determined to keep my premium number, I began a routine of blocking wrong numbers. Back then, blocking was device specific, so each time I got a new phone, I had to start over, keeping a list of numbers to block. I got my first job after graduating in 2009. Around 2010, I was assigned to a new project with a notorious reputation for burning people out due to a nefarious project manager named Bits. I didn't know his full name for quite a while. He took pride in making our lives a living hell. Bits ruled with an iron fist. From the moment his team stepped into the office, they were met with a barrage of emails and messages, each more urgent than the last. Bits thrived on creating chaos, often changing project deadlines on a whim, demanding his team work late into the night and through the weekends. Bits' presence loomed over every task. He insisted on micromanaging every detail, yet was quick to take on credit for any success, no matter how small. Failures, however, were met with his notorious tirades, publicly berating his team and assigning blame without hesitation. His unpredictable temper kept everyone on edge, afraid to make the slightest mistake. Meetings were another tool in his arsenal of torment. He scheduled them during lunch breaks and after hours, ensuring no one could escape his grasp. These meetings were often pointless, serving only to reinforce his dominance and disrupt any semblance of work-life balance that his team might have. His relentless stream of emails continued around the clock, each carrying a thinly veiled threat: perfection or dismissal. Under his reign, morale plummeted and burnout soared. Yet Bits remained oblivious, satisfied only by his complete and total control. I was quite ashamed when I learned that he was from the same area I was and had gone to the same school, though years before me. In 2012, our company merged with the parent company, and almost nothing changed personnel-wise, but infrastructure-wise, we got Microsoft Outlook and an organization view. That's when I learned about Bits from an organizational hierarchy perspective. His full name was an eye-opener. It was Bitsa. Now, the name was common enough, but at the time, mobile numbers had an area-specific pattern. So I already knew that the previous owner was from the same area I was. Still, it could be someone else. I wanted to dig deeper. I talked with an old mentor who lived in the same area and had coached several high school students for the last 2 decades. He confirmed my suspicions. I won't go into the details, but it was evident that Bitsa and Bits were the same person. I've been quite pissed with this unknown person named Bitsa for almost a decade, and Bits had been the bane of my and several others' existence for quite some time. This is where the revenge lies. First, I unblocked all the numbers in my phone. I was getting 5 to 6 calls daily on average, but after unblocking about 150 numbers, it increased to 15 to 18. My answering strategy changed drastically. Instead of saying wrong number, I politely explained that the owner had changed his number and provided his current number to update their database. I also volunteered his manager number in case he tries something else. The fallout was epic. These people had been trying to find him for almost a decade. Banks sold his debts to companies that harass people for a living to get their money back. It turned out he had been taking loans in everyone's names, his wife's, parents, uncles, aunts, and giving everyone that same number. He was evading credit card debts and loans of upwards of $200,000. Equivalent in US dollars, but it is a lot of money where we're from. Apparently, he had almost 20 cases filed against him, but no one could find him. Probably why he thought he could walk on water. There are multiple versions of what happened at the office when his manager started to get calls about him. He was let go about 2 months later, though, and we haven't heard from him since. So thanks for being with us. The RR Show is a production of Evergreen Podcasts and Wessler Media. Now, if you'd be so kind, please follow or subscribe to our show wherever you get your podcasts. And if you're feeling extra nice, you might as well leave a 5-star review. But for more, visit the website, rrshow.com. That is rrshow.com. I'm your host, Vince. Thank you to my producer, Kevin, and we'll see you next time here on The RR Show.